You're listening to the X Podcast. My name is Russ Moore. I'm sitting here across the table from Tim Moore. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
You're going to smile at that new intro
I
for
love
a
it.
year.
It's not new anymore.
It's not new.
It's just great.
It is what it is.
Still professional.
Yes.
I feel like we stepped into a new level.
I have an email question to start you out with.
No, you don't.
I actually
Are you
really
serious?
do. Yeah, I got one email question while I was gone this week, and
Really?
It simply says, Pastor Tim, how many Nike shoes do you have? ! Winky face.
That's a really good question. I don't have an answer.
You
for
have no idea.
I don't have an answer.
Did they
for
have
you.
a number that high in mathematics
Stop.
in the field? Or
Yeah.
okay.
It's 10 to the no.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
Probably at least 20.
yeah.
Maybe
So,
15.
what's your for people that want to bless you? What size do you wear?
11.
11. So
11.
If you want to contribute
Jordans,
to the
Nikes,
Tim Moore,
anything.
Did you see the movie yet? Air?
No, I haven't seen it.
What is
I know,
going on?
I know. I want to see it so badly.
You got to get with it.
I know. I am. It's on the plan. We actually were talking about seeing a movie the last week or 2 weeks, and we've been busy. So, Air, I need to see it.
Air. All right. Well, okay. So let's catch up because I've been gone.
Okay. I've been
and
here.
You've been here. We kicked off a brand new series while I was gone. The one we've been talking about for a while on mental health called Sound Mind.
Yeah.
And it seems like just a huge reception to the direction of more than a series, but a campaign on mental health.
Yep.
And the weeks are laid out. We got some exciting guests coming on to contribute to the conversation. And I think it's going to be a really meaningful season for us as a faith community. And while you're doing that, I was while
I was working, you were in Spain.
Working, I was eating empanadas in Madrid and having some seafood paella in the coast of Barcelona. So,
how was your trip?
Just suffering for Jesus. It was great. It was, I can't remember because I talked a little bit about before I left what I was going to do, but this one was really special on a few counts. Number one, my father and I take an international trip every year.
At least one.
Yes, the last couple of years we've actually done two.
Yeah.
This is the first year we've taught the rest of the family into coming, meaning my mom, who normally will only travel domestic, and my sister.
Does that mean just South Carolina?
No, she'll go with us to Denver or LA to visit my sister.
Yeah.
But my mom went, and my sister and her husband, my brother-in-law. So the five of us spent 6-7 days in Spain, and it was beautiful. I loved it because for a lot of reasons. One, I love travel, and especially with the family.
Yeah.
But also because as much as I love experiencing new cultures, this also kind of felt like vacation too, because it was two of the three cities were coastal cities by the beach. Spain is part of that rare 3% of the world that's in the Mediterranean climate. So it was 70 and sunny, not a cloud in sight all day, every day.
3%.
Only 3% of the world, of the land mass of the world has a Mediterranean climate.
That's why.
Yep.
Because are we talking about the region 10 degrees above and below the equator? Is that considered Mediterranean or no? It has to be more than that. Is there other factors that go into making a climate Mediterranean?
It's a great question. I don't know.
Because I would think it would have been more than that if you take that band from the Tropic of Cancer down to the...
Yeah, I didn't look into
what's
it.
the other one?
In fact, just to make sure I wasn't going crazy, because I remember finding this out in 2019 when my niece had just moved to LA, and I went to LA for the first time in like 10 years, and I think me and you are similar. We nerd out on stuff. So I started looking into palm trees, and the first palm trees were brought in the 1900s by, and for all these different reasons. And
invasive species?
Most of them. Yeah, like 10 of the 12 major types of palm trees were imported in Southern California. But one of the reasons Southern California became such a draw is because it is part of the rare 3% of the world with a Mediterranean climate. So LA, San Diego, Southern California is technically a Mediterranean climate, which is one of the reasons it has such a draw. It is mild year-round pretty much. Not much humidity.
Not much rain or humidity. So maybe that's the difference of all around the equator, especially as you go south of it and even above it. You're probably getting to maybe more tropical climates. It's not probably Mediterranean. You know what I mean?
that may be it. Yeah.
And so
yeah,
that's where you get,
tropical doesn't mean Mediterranean.
Right, and that's probably where you get a far more humidity, probably more rainy seasons. I don't know. We're just making crap
when you look
up
at
as
the
we talk.
cradle
We don't know
of like Greece and a big part of the Middle East.
You mean around the Mediterranean?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
a lot of that.
But you're saying it goes all the way around, and so
yeah,
the climate that you have in what, L.A.?
L.A. That's
San
a Mediterranean
Diego?
climate. San Diego. Yep. Santa Barbara. That whole area.
I got a friend that lives there. It's 75 degrees, almost year round. Very little rain.
Love it.
Sounds awful.
Oh, I love it.
So much sun.
So yeah, so that was amazing because it also felt very, like it was. I learned a lot. It was fascinating. I toured a lot of sites, but it was also vacation-y, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
Because I got, spent a little bit of time on the beach, a little bit more free time, leisure to.
How does the beach compare to some of our beaches? Actual just beach.
Oh, it's amazing.
Is it?
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Was it really sandy? Was it a lot of seashells?
A lot of white.
No?
Yeah.
Was it white sand?
Yeah, white sand.
Was it really? What color was the water?
So I spent time in 3 main cities: Madrid, Valencia, and Barcelona. And Valencia had the most unique color water I've ever seen in my life. It was a light turquoisey green. It didn't look real. I told somebody, I said Madrid, which was the only kind of supposedly landlocked, quote unquote landlocked city that we visited. Madrid felt like a combination of Italy and Argentina, and just in its historicity, and it's it was so timeless, and rich in history and beautiful, and just amazing. It was just Spain and Italy I feel like are very, very similar. But then we went to Valencia, which felt like I've never been to Sydney, Australia, but it looks like what Sydney, Australia I feel like would look like. It's like a combination of Sydney, Australia and Italy. Because right against the water, there's this famous architect that's created all these new modern spaces that have made Valencia such a draw. And they're so expensive, and they're these town hall and these orchestral centers, and they're all white and glass, and it's all against this turquoise green sea, and it doesn't look real. It looks like what you'd picture Sydney, Australia when you see the pictures.
Wow.
But then we went to Barcelona. Barcelona feels like if you were to combine L.A. and New York and Rome. So the beaches in Barcelona, talking about the beaches, felt like Santa Monica. Like the character and the energy and the fun and the busyness and the youthfulness of Santa Monica
California.
beaches. Yeah, Santa Monica, California. But you walk into any of the city center, it has got the energy of a New York. Like people dressed to the nines, energy, just the pace. It just feels a little bit very New Yorkish. But against the backdrop of kind of like a Rome. You know how Rome has that really interesting juxtaposition of ancient and modern together.
Yeah.
And so you go into, and then all three of them are just beautiful, colorful, charactered places, sunbathed tiendas and markets and cafes and restaurants everywhere. Yeah. Beautiful people, beautiful locales. Architecture in Spain is just jaw-dropping and historic, and it's such rich in history. I saw the official oldest restaurant in the world.
Really?
It's called Casa Botín, is in Madrid. It was founded in 1725.
Wow.
Still open.
Same people.
Yeah, they're really old.
Yeah.
Really old. So
you remember when you told me too, you got to go to Pamplona and that you ran with the bulls.
This sounds like
do you
something
remember,
that I would say. What?
Do you remember when you told me and that you got gored and for a little bit, but then
someone raised me from the dead? Is that where we're going? Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, you don't remember that?
Yeah, that was beautiful.
You didn't go running with the bulls?
I did not, but I was telling you one of the interesting things culturally. We're just gonna spiff, not spiff. What's the word?
I don't know.
Riff. We're gonna riff on Spain for a minute.
Okay.
Is that Barcelona is in a province, an area called Catalonia. It's really interesting because they speak Spanish, but they also have their own language, which as does Valencia. Valencia has Spanish, but also Valencian, which is their own version, their own language. So anyways, but Barcelona is almost kind of like the Texas of Spain, where Barcelona is almost like an anti-Spain part of Spain. It has a lot of the culture, but it also is exempt from a lot of the other Spanish culture in some of the food and drinks, and again having their own language. And they, for whatever reason, they feel like their own people. They've always felt like they're separate, they're distinct from the rest of Spain. So they've a large portion of Barcelona has always wanted to secede from the country, and there were votes to secede before COVID hit. There's still a lot of people in Barcelona that want to secede from Spain, but when
They want to be in their own country?
they want to be their own country. But well, I think I was telling you earlier what was interesting was a lot of people changed their tune after COVID because they realized, oh, wow, there's some benefit of being part of a larger country that can
How
help
would
us
you draw a line around that? I guess Portugal. What's the difference?
Yeah.
But it'd be a lot smaller.
Yeah.
You didn't go to Portugal, did you?
I don't. I didn't. I want to. Oh, I want to. I had a friend that messaged me when they saw my pictures and they're like, you need to take the train into Lisbon because it's
Really?
insane. So I want to go to
It is.
Portugal.
Because Portugal, you're going to be on the coast, and it's probably just fascinating.
Oh, I'd love to go to Portugal, Brazil.
Wait, you want to go to Portugal and Brazil?
Oh, yeah.
They're not that close to each other.
But I just, in my mind, they're linked because they both speak Portuguese.
Okay. And they're both on the coast.
And they're both beautiful and tropical and exotic. And yeah.
Well, sounds like you had a great time.
It was amazing.
It was like 83 degrees and warm and sunny here the whole time you were gone.
Yeah, I don't believe that. It was warming up, and then I get back like it's I don't know 2 a.m. Monday night.
Yeah, and we
early Tuesday morning. And it was like
freezing.
36 degrees.
Oh,
what
God.
is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little reminder. It's like one of those things. Don't enjoy summer too much. I'll be back. It's
And then this whole week is kind of like it's not
Schwarzenegger
bad,
saying,
but
I'll be back.
yeah.
It's winter, the cold. I'll be back. That's what it's doing. So you went over there, and now you're cultured. So now we have cultured Russ from now on.
Am I?
You're cultured Russ now.
Yeah. Well, I did tell you we got an email in. I don't even know where to go with this, but we got an email in of somebody asking for us to talk about travel and how it cultures you. I don't know that I'm cultured, but I do love to travel.
Is this your first time in Europe?
No.
Oh, when else did you go? To Europe.
I've been to Italy, been to Iceland.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wait, Iceland's considered part of Europe? Mm-hmm. Is it really? Mm-hmm. I learned something today. Hey, you learned something if you
It's a Scandinavian nation. What do you think it's part of?
I didn't think it was really part of the Scandinavian nation. Mm-hmm. Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's really interesting seeing on the map. Anyways, travel back.
Greenland's not, right?
No.
Greenland's attached to more Canada and that upper right, but Iceland is.
Yeah, Iceland. Yep. A Scandinavian nation. Yep. Part of Europe.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that we're
Has the oldest parliament in the world. Iceland does.
Okay. See, we're learning things.
We're learning
We're,
things, you know?
we're becoming more and more cultured. This is helpful. So when I asked us, well, I mean, I think so. When you go over and you love to travel a lot. I enjoy traveling. I don't travel quite as much as you do, but I enjoy it. But when you go over to these places and then you come back,
Yeah.
what kind of perspective do you bring back with you? What is it that you walk away from? Because I've spent a lot of time overseas and lived in Germany for 3 years and traveled a lot throughout Europe. And you definitely, I think when I in my mind go back to those years, I think at first, when you go to a new place, there's what they call culture shock. There's this, you realize how different everything is. The way people talk, the way they, even just, I mean, I've been to places where it seems like, oh my gosh, there's going to a fight's about to break out, and the way people talk, and that's just how everybody talks there.
Yeah.
Like they're just aggressive and they're loud and they just yell and they're not going to fight. That's what they do. And so it takes a while when you walk into a new space where the language is different, the food is different, the geography is different, the government is different, the way of life is different.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things I remember just going to Germany. Like the way of life was so different than here in America.
Yeah.
And so you have culture shock when you go into a new environment and you kind of miss home. And then I remember after being there about a year, it was kind of like, I kind of like it here. And we came back. I remember our first year we came back to visit the very next summer. And we came back to visit back here in America. And I was back here for a little bit. And there's a familiarity when you get back that feels good, and got back and was familiar. But then shortly after that, I was like, okay, I think I actually miss it.
Yeah.
I actually am excited to go back. And because that whole first year was difficult.
Yeah.
So there's so much adjustment. But One of the things I appreciate about my time traveling in Europe and just all the other places that I've gotten to go and the people you get to meet and the food you get to try is I feel like it's changed my perception of life and the world.
Yeah.
To an extent, you know what? To a point, like it really broadens your understanding. I think there's something. I'm always blown away, and I've met several people. I've met people in this state who are like, "Yeah, we've never left the state of Ohio." I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, and I don't. Some people I think they get so comfortable and familiar that it becomes fearful to even think about leaving. They like the comfort of this. But I think we're missing something if we don't go have experiences like you just had.
Yeah, was it Oscar Wilde or whoever it was that said, if you don't travel, you've only read the first page of the book of life. And it's kind of cliche. And, I always want to, it's always interesting to talk about. And I always want to be delicate because I know in some ways traveling can be a luxury.
Yeah.
And so I understand, there's a financial aspect to travel, and then you add on to that, your place in life. If you're a single mom or dad with 4 or 5 kids,
it's really hard to do.
But I do think, having said that, I guess I would say number one, if you in modern day America, I do think traveling is way more accessible financially than people realize. I think you can build relationships with people. I mean, a lot of my traveling, at least domestically, when people are like, I travel all the time, a lot of it is I've had the privilege to live in a few different places where I built relationships.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that enables travel, and a lot of times that may be paid for, so that's part of it. And I think number two, just a little bit of context. My dad is a retired educator, and I'm in ministry. So I say that to say we're blessed, but our family's not wealthy.
Yeah.
One of the ways we travel is my dad finds killer deals that blow people's minds when I tell them what we pay for it, number one. And then number two, we save up for it.
Yeah.
And so I do think if you have a desire to travel and see the world, it's probably a whole lot more accessible than you think it is if you prioritize and save up for it. So I guess I'd say that number one, because I know it can be kind of delicate. It can feel like,
you're privileged.
You're bragging, whatever.
You are. I mean, I understand.
Look,
I just sit there and live vicariously through you as you talk about Iceland and wait, where have you gone since you've been here?
Oh, you know what's funny? This we were walking through the airport, and my mom actually asked me. She goes, "How many countries you been to?" So I actually took time when I was in the airport to tally it up, and this was my 14th.
Hey.
This is my 14th.
You're almost up there, right? You almost caught me.
Well, and it's all relative too, because I know people that it's 14's child play. They've been going to 30, 40 countries, or even if you were raised in a military, family,
Well, living in Germany really helped us visit a whole lot of countries pretty easily.
Yeah, because there's so much,
and you have to count the Vatican in there.
It's true.
The Vatican. I always counted the Vatican.
15.
I always counted the Vatican. Yeah. Because the Vatican is considered its own government, its own whatever. So you go to Italy, you go to Rome, you go to the Vatican, boom, you can mark 2 countries off.
All right, then I'm at 15.
You're getting up there.
But yeah, and again, it's some people will be like, "Oh, such a luxury," but it's also, I don't want to downplay it's a joy of mine to be able to do that. It's a privilege.
It's a priority.
But it's also a priority to me. And I'm in a different place in life than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I'm not married and I don't have kids. And so, there's a trade-off.
Yep.
There's a trade-off in some of that. But having said that,
you can have kids or you can be cultured.
or one day the dream is to do the Irwin thing and have kids and just take them all over the world.
That would be amazing.
But yeah, I do think travel is, can I say it this way, an important luxury if you can integrate it into your life.
Yeah.
Because I will say, I think the more you travel, I wrote something. You remember when you had us do the travel episode?
Yeah.
I actually wrote a couple things down back then.
Yeah, I couldn't get you to stop talking on that one.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what if we did this and you'd loved it.
I loved it.
But I was like, we hit a nerve. Someone loved it.
But I don't usually do this on the podcast, but I actually made some notes. I just want to read this because this is true, and you can tell me if you've noticed this. The people I know who travel tend to be less fearful. The people I know who travel tend to be more confident. the people I know who travel tend to be less closed-minded and less bigoted. I heard Erwin McManus talk about there's a new there's a study that came out that actually linked travel with intelligence. And so I think it's hard to, and there's been multiple studies that have actually linked travel with happiness. So there's a lot of studies out now that actually link travel with IQ and travel with happiness levels. And I think you can't help the more you meet people different than you for it to open up new doors in your mind. You can't help but to get around new cultures and it blow up paradigms, because the world can be so small and you can tend to think everybody thinks like me, believes like me, looks like me. Even culturally, there's just so many things we take for granted that for us is normal culturally, that you go into a different place and it blows all that up. I mean, you even, especially the further away you get. I mean, you think about places like in certain Asian cultures where burping is a sign of compliment to the chef.
Really?
And it's actually good social etiquette. And you're like, there's no way that could never be.
Yeah.
Well, it's because in our culture it's not.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so many ways that you can't travel and it not open up your mind. You can't travel and it not build empathy towards other people. You can't. I just even know, even domestically, like for me, getting out of certain cultural bubbles when I would move to certain states and get to know other people, it textured and layered my political thinking. It textured and layered my social thinking. It textured and layered my philosophical thinking, because you're getting into the lives of other kind of people, and you're seeing the world. And I could probably wax poetic on this for hours, and so I'll try to keep it brief. But I just think when it comes to not just people, but the beauty of the world God created, I just think much of the diversity of the world, not just through architecture and cities and people, but mountain ranges and deserts and rivers and lakes and sunrises and sunsets and climates. It's just, I just think there's so much of the world to see. And so, I don't know, to answer your original question, like whenever I come back, one of the things that I have a fear of now that travel has become kind of a norm for me is I really hope I don't ever lose the awe. As the older you get, the quicker time seems to pass by. So unfortunately, a lot of times I can come back from being across, in another continent for a week and come back, and by the next day, it's just back to my normal thing.
Right.
Which is good in a way. I can't stay there.
Yeah.
But I also one of the things I want to do better as I get older is like continue to reflect. Like the other day, I got back on my Instagram and I started looking back through pictures of some of the countries I've been through the last few, and it like took me back. Yeah. I'm like, man, like it's a shame I've already forgotten and not like let this get deeper into me. Spain specifically was really interesting. For me, it was a really rich and meaningful experience, because as much as I travel, other than a few mission trips in my college years, this is the first time in 15 years that I've been back in a Spanish-speaking culture since I lived in Argentina. And so for me, that was really meaningful. Not only because I was experiencing a new country, and not only because my family was there, and not only because it's this very kind of tropical, beachy, beautiful place, but I was kind of curious going in, man, how much of the culture and language is going to come back to me. And it was, for lack of better words, so fun. Yeah. That by the end of the first day, like literally the fluency, and I don't know, I don't like calling myself fluent because I just think there's so many levels to fluency, but it was like riding a bike. I'd miss a day. Wow. I mean, the language fully came back to me, and I was just having a ball, like just flowing in and out in conversations, and like I had never missed a day living in a Spanish-speaking culture. And for me, that was really, really special. There's a lot of personal things that I resonate with Spanish culture that I'm like, it made me feel not alone. Like and part of this again, maybe the place in life, but my friends, laugh at me and say it's not good. And maybe a lot of scientists would say it's not good either, nutritionists, that I eat so late. But in Latin countries, European countries, like in Spain, you don't eat till 9:30.
That's so late.
And so for me, that's normal. And I'm like, so I'm not the crazy one here. I actually fit in. I love tapas culture. I love that the tapas and trying a bunch of different foods and getting small plates and sharing. Like I have always loved that, and that's all Spain is tapas culture of not getting just one big meal and engulfing it and consuming it, but you and your whole table are trying all these new foods and here, try this. All this is so good, and you got all these food and drinks, and like it's just I love it. It made me come alive. Another thing I loved is
that's where we differ. That's where we differ.
Yeah.
I think I prefer my own meal.
Oh, I
don't want to share.
You and my dad.
And I don't
my
wanna,
dad. Oh, by the fifth day, he's like, I want to go somewhere where I can get my own burger, my own fries, and I'm like, why? Like, so I love that.
Yeah. Well, I also always feel like, well, number one, I eat fast. Number two, I eat a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel bad that I'm like,
but
I'll just keep eating and I'll just eat it all. Like, it's like, that one was good. That is good. Like, if I like it, then you didn't get any. So I don't feel like I have good etiquette.
But the beauty
to sit at a table
No,
and
but here's the
share it.
beauty. You just keep ordering. That's what I love, because you're taking time over a meal. So you're like, hey, we're going to start with these 2 or 3. Here, then we'll get 2 or 3 more of these. And then, let's try this. And you just keep going.
It's so different than how I think we are trained. You know, the way our culture operates, where you go, you order your meal.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a win when you can order your drinks and food at the same time.
Yeah.
So that it comes quicker.
Right.
So that you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea of slowing down and ordering a little bit of time. Like when I go to fancy restaurants and they have like multiple courses and and it takes 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dear Lord, let me get out of here.
And I love
I'm just like, hey, you want a salad, and then you want appetizer, and then you're going to get the first course, and then there's something else to bring. I'm like, oh, just bring me my food. Let me eat it and go home. Yeah.
I want to see you in Spain. I want to see you in Spain. Now, then I think I told you another part of the culture that I loved that I think America could use a whole lot more of, and I know some of this is climate-based, but Spain, I mean, everywhere you go is the alfresco experience of like eating in cafes are all outside. Like all of Spain, whether you're eating or shopping, is just sunbathed in Mediterranean, perfect weather, in the sun, walking down sunbathed tiendas and markets and cafes. You're eating outside. And so, like, part of it probably is you want to stay and linger longer. Like, dinner and, like, eating and drinking is so enjoyable there because you're outside and you're trying all these different things and the weather's perfect and the beauty and the architecture is gorgeous.
It makes sense if you have weather like that.
Yeah.
When it's a beautiful day, I want to sit outside.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes a ton of sense.
So, those are some of my, I don't know.
I think one thing that it made me just think about when it comes to travel, I think in our mindset, I think there's something about being exposed to other cultures, other people, other languages. If you've not had to go and here's what it is. I think when you go to another space and you become the minority, when you look different than everybody else is there, when you are the only one that speaks this language and everybody else can understand each other, but you are struggling to understand. I've been in those. You go to those cultures where just the rhythms are different. Like I remember that just in Europe. Like again, I don't know how much has changed, but like stores would close early. In Germany, stores closed early.
Yeah.
So like you'd be like, oh, if you didn't go to the grocery store by like 4 o'clock, you might not be able to go and get whatever. Here we got convenience stores that are open 24/7, and so. I think it's a way of life in some of these places that we're talking about where you went. The way of life is different. Like even in Spain, right? Did most people participate in the afternoon siesta?
So siestas are definitely a thing in Spain. I think
it's still a thing.
Yes, it's still a thing. And if it's anything like when I lived in Argentina, it's more prominent in rural areas. It's more prominent in towns than it is cities. Because another thing, I will say that one of the only disappointing things, I'm going to sound very anti-American right now, that one of the only disappointing things about Spain is the level of globalization that it did have.
McDonald's?
Because I'm telling you, we're walking down some of the most beautiful, like rich, just timeless streets of Madrid or Barcelona or Valencia, and in the middle of all these little local, and like there's a freaking Little Caesars, and I'm like, Are you kidding me? You don't need that. Like, why is there a Little Caesars there? Or there's a Dunkin'
Little
Donuts.
Caesars, that's Greek. I mean, that's
So-
Dunkin' Donuts. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Seeing golden arches when you go into a,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, hey, this doesn't fit with the
No.
backdrop. But
No.
but it was also home. I remember the very first time we landed in Germany. The first place that we went, it was not the same, by the way. First place that we went to get food was McDonald's. I think my parents were trying to get us to. Well, it was already hard enough to go, guys, we're moving. We didn't want to go.
Right.
So I was like, look, there's a McDonald's. We'll go get McDonald's. It did not taste like McDonald's. The hamburger meat, I think we think it was a horse. And then, I mean, it probably just the way they feed their cows is different, but I was like, that was the joke. I was like, that's horse meat. Like, it was not good. It did not taste like the hamburger, the McDonald's I was used to.
Yeah.
So that did not work for us. But yeah, it's funny when you end up in different cultures and you give yourself to it. I think it does begin to broaden your perspective of humanity.
Would you agree with what I said? Sorry. Would you agree with what I read?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really hard. I think it's, number one, I think it's really hard to have stereotypes or opinions about other nations and cultures when you've been there, when you've met and you're like, these are some of the sweetest people in the world. Like when you're around them, when you get to understand how they think, it changes the way you view. And so I think what happens is the world gets smaller or you get bigger.
Yeah.
Your mind gets bigger.
Yeah.
And I think both things happen.
Yeah.
And you see commonality and humanity when you travel.
Yep.
When you go, you realize, oh no, there's a human thing that is common between us. There are things that when you get past the difficulty of language, when you get past that and you realize that there's some of the same things that they like and that I like and whatever. Yeah. But I think it does. I think it makes a big difference. I think if you do not, so I don't know what this podcast is about. If you do not travel, just be careful because you may end up with a very small mind, maybe mindset. You end up with a very small perspective. Let me say it that way. A very small perspective about life. And you can think, this was the biggest thing I remember, right? Traveling a lot. You can think that your experience and where you are is the center of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is what I always like. You feel like everybody, like everybody's experience is like America, right? It's like the
and then if
places
anybody's
I've lived.
different, you and the people that think like you make fun of them.
Yeah.
Or be like, can you believe the rest of them would even think that way?
Yeah.
Or the rest of them would do that.
And so when you travel, like it was just, I remember even just going to Russia for a couple weeks and being in Russia and seeing them celebrate, I think they're like 800th or 850th birthday.
Yeah.
And you go, wait, how long have we been?
Yeah.
Oh, how long has Ohio been around? Yeah. Oh, we just did the bicentennial. You know what I mean? Like they got us beat by a lot in Moscow. Oh, and it's just so, it's fascinating when you kind of realize the longevity and you get to see, like even in France and going in buildings that were built in the 1700s.
Well, I told you when I was in Spain, which it was so interesting going through like Toledo and like all this place. Which
did you bring me a sword?
Did you see this? No. Did you see the sign that I posted? No. They told this story, and I don't remember the story, but they told the story of how there's a Toledo, Ohio, and there's this whole sign that says Toledo de Ohio,
really,
in the middle of Toledo. And I took a picture of it.
Toledo of Ohio.
Yes. So that was interesting. But no, like, I mean, they'd be talking about.
Get me a sword.
I know, but I sent you pictures from Toledo. There's swords everywhere there.
I know.
But like, we were looking through. They're talking about this area was conquered by the Muslims in the 2nd century. This was, and you just realize how old Spain is. Me and my dad watched the changing of the guards at one of the like capital locations. Was super interesting, and then seeing the ancient cathedrals. But I think I told you it was in Madrid, I believe, that I saw the oldest official restaurant in the world, Casa Botín, which was founded in 1725.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah,
that's before America. I mean, that's just it's crazy. And I don't know, but I think. You mentioned briefly earlier about the whole language thing and empathy and like it was kind of fun because my sister and my brother-in-law have been doing Duolingo the last couple months, trying to learn Spanish. And so one of the things I remember while I was there is, oh, wow, one of the best ways to continue to learn and put something in you is by teaching it. And so the language was coming back to me, but also it was very fun for me to be teaching my sister and Rob during the day.
Yeah.
We'd be walking and I'd be like, all right, Rebecca. I did this every single day. For some reason, she could not get Estamos Caminando, which is we're walking.
God, why wouldn't she get that? It's so easy.
So I would repeat it over and over. And so we'd be walking and I'd be like, all right, Rebecca,
She
I'm
couldn't
going to
get
ask you the
Estamos
same
Caminando.
thing. You see, you got it.
Yeah, we're walking.
I'm going to ask you the same thing. And she learned a good bit. And my brother-in-law had really picked it up, but it was just it was so fun just teaching them, and like it was just it made me want to come back and develop my linguistic capacity again. Maybe I want to come back and be like, okay, I don't want to get on Duolingo.
Lose it when when you're not using it.
You do, but again, I was shocked at the majority of it
Yeah.
came back to me.
That's cool.
Like I was shocked. And I do have, this may sound super weird, but I do have random days here and there where I will intentionally think in Spanish. And I will like carry on conversations in my head in Spanish to like jog it back up. So like a few days before I was on my way to Spain, in my mind I was speaking Spanish and responding to myself in Spanish. And
I do that sometimes I sometimes will just do it with Gaelic. Sometimes I do it with Greek. Just ancient Greek. It helps me a little bit in my studies. Sometimes I just think in it. And it's just,
okay.
Yeah.
So,
I bet that's what a lot of people do. That's what we all do.
Am I coming off?
Yeah, I mean, no, you're not coming off at all snooty or like somehow better than any of the rest of us. And so here's the thing. Like,
Am I real? No.
Yeah, I don't know. Lydia, what do you think?
Okay,
so
look.
I think I never got to quite that level.
I didn't think of that as abnormal.
No, I think you have to get to a level of fluency in a language that you start thinking in that language. It's never been that way for me. Like, you hear something. I think there's levels. I think you hear a language, and if you've studied enough of that language, you can almost, before you understand the grammar and everything, you can like, oh, I know what they're saying. They're saying we need to go there, turn right at the market, go whatever. Like you can pick that up. But what your brain's doing, I think, is your brain is hearing words and translating those words. Oh, they said go.
Right.
Oh, they just said 50. Oh, they said turn right. I just heard them say right. Oh, they just said the hospital.
Right.
Oh, they just said, okay, I think I got it. But your brain's translating. I think it's different when you get to a point of being fluid in it to where you're thinking and you're not doing translation in the middle.
Yeah.
I think I think that I've not gotten to that level in any language. So I know people have, and obviously
so I hope I'm not coming across that.
He's a little bit elite, but
It's not elite. So, okay, let's go there, though. This is another thing I was looking up when you talked about, okay, what are some, because you were asking me earlier, what are some things that, like, you feel like America could, I don't know, that you wish could be imported back to, or imported to America. And so one of the things is, and I looked up the statistic earlier, close to 75% of the world is bilingual, speaks at least two languages. I think that's area for America as great as it is to grow. I think we have room to grow, and not only because I think it broadens our minds to other cultures, not only because I think there can be benefit in speaking other languages, but also I'll never forget my first week in Argentina. One of the American teachers of Spanish took us aside, and she told us, she said, I want you to remember this. Whenever you learn a new language, every time you learn a new language, it literally opens a new door in your mind. It's not just that you're acquiring a new skill. It is opening a new door in your mind. Because the thing about learning a new language, and you kind of alluded to this, is, and I kept trying to tell my sister this, because certain phrases, like every noun in Spanish is gendered, has a masculine and feminine. There's so many things about the way you say things that if you were to translate it perfectly, it wouldn't even make sense. But they drilled into us, a different language is not a translation. It's a new language. So there can be an interpretation of it. There can be a transliteration of it, but it's not a translation. And which gets your mind just going, and it just opens up new doors. And I think it's a great mental exercise. And so it made me want to go, because we talked about, okay, where we're going to go next year. It made me want to be like, okay, I want to get on Duolingo and learn, because we talked about going to Portugal, and I was like, well, I want to learn Portuguese.
Yeah, you could cross over from Spanish to Portuguese pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They're very similar.
They say once you learn the Latin language,
Yeah.
if you immerse yourself, it will only take you a month to 2 months to learn another
Probably.
Latin language. Because there
Even from
are
Spanish to Italian, it's not that far off. A lot
Yeah.
of the same vocabulary.
Yes.
Very similar vocabulary. So if you could get around in Spain, you probably can get around in Italy.
Yeah.
I just get around because I just ask them, do you speak English? No, Nate, it is interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know why, but it's interesting the predominant effect that America has had in the world.
Yeah.
That in a short period of time, English has probably, I'm sure, become the number one most spoken language probably around the world.
Yes.
Like it is almost every country you go to, it is the next language they teach. And that's pretty fascinating to think that America has kind of asserted itself
Yeah.
globally to the point that everybody
Right.
learns English. We went to Russia, people were learning English. Germany, all the younger generation at the time we were there, all had to take English, I think, in school. The older generation didn't. So when you go and talk to someone, if they were younger, you would ask them, do you speak English?
Right.
In German. And more, they would all, they all say a little bit.
Right.
But then they could speak it really well. Better than
Right.
I could speak German. You go to an older person and you ask them, and they literally,
They don't know.
They didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so I think over time, you see that infusion of English. But
Yep.
I'm always impressed with people that can speak multiple. And when you're in Europe, everybody does.
Yes. But, I keep derailing myself. My brother-in-law, as I'm teaching him and Rebecca Spanish, and I'm kind of just going through how do you conjugate the verbs. I'm going through some of these different things, and he would say a phrase back, and I'd correct it because he wanted me to. He's like, no, I want you to be tough on me, and so I'd correct it and say, well, no, this is why that doesn't make sense. And he said, he literally said this. He goes, this gives you so much more empathy. Because I said that one word wrong that to me is not even that big of a deal, but to them probably sounds funny. And he said, doesn't that give you more empathy for the people that come into America who that they at least try, but it's slightly off. It may even sound kind of funny to us. It's like broken English, but it's like, like now I'm in their shoes.
Yeah.
I'm in another country attempting to speak their language.
I actually enjoy that when I go someplace. Like I enjoy learning some of the language or phrases and trying.
Yeah.
Some people, I think, and this you talk about fear, some people are so afraid of doing that.
Yeah.
Most of them, if you ask them, do you speak any English? And they'll say, oh, no, or just a little bit. And
Right.
They can speak English very well. But I kind of like, it was kind of a challenge. It was exciting. Like I would learn something and I wanted to go practice it.
Yeah.
And so I would go and try phrases and see if I can understand them. And then you just learn how to tell them, okay, slow down. Can you say it again? So.
I love it.
I think just the whole thought when it comes to travel, someone said, asked us about talking about it. You happen to be on it. So we just thought, let's just have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple ways, right? You can see it as I want to experience and see the rest of the world. There are some beautiful landscapes in America. There's amazing and beautiful landscapes all over, though. I mean, I've seen gorgeous things all over in different places around the world, and there's history. It's just amazing to kind of learn and to go. It's like we were talking about going to Israel.
Right.
It's like going to Israel and seeing some of these places that you read about from 2,000 years ago. Because of our faith. Like there's something about it. It's visceral. It's real. It impacts you, and it does build your empathy.
Yeah.
It gives you a new perspective, I think a new lens to see the world, not just through your own experience, but seeing it through how I like to see things through how other people live.
Yeah. Yep.
Just like that to me is unique.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, like you can love America, but there's an interesting thing when you get outside of America to realize, oh wait, I'm viewing the world and I'm viewing world history and I'm viewing current events and politics through an American lens.
Yeah.
We're not always right.
No.
And it helps to get a little bit more of a global mindset. And then there's a couple other things that maybe are just a little bit more off the cuff that I think are benefits of travel. Maybe this is just a preference thing, but I'm someone that I just really value experiences. Like I think about how short life is, and there is something about you can't travel to like a new locale and not collect beautiful moments and collect beautiful experiences and collect beautiful memories and it kind of just add value. I think it adds value to your life. Another thing too, this is maybe a little bit more specific and niche, but if you're someone, I think this applies to everybody, but especially if you're someone who writes for a living or speaks for a living or teaches for a living or communicates in any way for a living or creates anything for a living. One of the things I love about every time you travel is you're collecting content. Like I'm gonna try not to talk about it a ton until I get closer, but finally starting on book 2. Well, finally starting on what I believe will end up being book 2, and seeing that through. Yeah. And the whole time I'm over there, I'm collecting things that are like piecing anecdotes and historical tidbits, and I'm constantly taking notes. Like one of the fun things I love to do, and I think I read some of it when we did the Ireland episode, is every time I go to another country, I create a note on my note app. Yeah. And I write all the interesting facts because I don't want to forget them. Yeah. I write all the things, and it's content. Like I'm looking at it not just for me, but for this could make its way into a book. This could make its way into a sermon. This could make its way into a beautiful conversation with someone that I meet. Yeah. This could make its way, and so I don't know. Yeah. I'm biased. There's nothing morally wrong if you don't travel, but I do. I couldn't, I think, recommend it enough. I think travel is an education in and of itself. Yeah. And I also think it's a confidence builder in life. Mm-hmm. I think it builds confidence. Yeah. I don't know.
So many great places to go.
What's the next few places you want to go?
Want to go? Yes. Well, I told you I just canceled our trip to London.
You did?
Yeah. It was just bad timing. And, we were going to do a cruise around the UK. And just got a killer deal, and then realized all the other expenses going around it was going to make it pretty expensive on top of the other trips. So, I'll be later this summer in the Caribbean. So
there you go.
I've gotten to see some cool places down there. We've gone to Honduras. Yeah. We've gone to, there's some places I really enjoy. Honestly, when we've gone to the Caribbean, I would rather not port at places where it's like, my favorite is not to land in a place and it's like, okay, they have a beach, so we can just go to that. Yeah. Like I don't care about beaches as much as like my wife does. Yeah. My favorite has been when we've gone to St. Kitts, when we've gone to, some of those islands. Yeah. And the one time we went to one of those islands and we had this guy that we basically, for like, I don't know how many hours we had, and he was like our personal taxi. It wasn't very expensive to do it, but he was our personal taxi, and we're driving all over the island, and he's just telling us the whole history, and it goes back hundreds of years. I love that. He's talking about this side's Dutch, and this side's this, and they don't like it, and they go to work early, and over there, and it just I think I love. So I found the older I've gotten, the more I love history and science. Yeah, and so I think when I go places like that and I learn about the history, or going to went to San Juan. And there's I am mesmerized by ruins and things like that I love walking through them and going through those kind of things. So we got a few places that we're going. Nothing quite as exotic as Spain. I don't know if you consider that exotic, but nothing all the way across the pond.
Well, and let me just say this:
but we almost went this summer, and we decided to cancel last minute. But one day I will soon.
Well, I'm gonna tie in our conversation on travel with our church conversation on mental health, because
I good for your mental health.
I think not only is it good for your mental health, but I think there's some things that some other things America could do well to adopt. We joke about siestas. I don't know if you listened to the full episode yet, Mark Batterson, but Mark Batterson says the first thing he would do if he were made president is to institute naps. Yeah. And I think America, when you talk about mental health, we got to talk about the fact that Americans don't know how to rest, and we got to talk about the devastatingly low amount of travel and vacation days that Americans are given and or take compared to the rest of the modern world. Yeah. And I don't think that's the factor in our mental health crisis, but it is a factor that we are so work, and I'm all about work. I'm ambitious. I got things I want to do, and I want to be productive. I want to work hard. I want to contribute something meaningful with my life. I love what I do, and I love even when I'm not here. I'm usually working on a side project. Like but man, like also I want to experience the world, experience life, and live, and I want to make sure that I'm taking time to not live and die off an American version of what we've come to believe reality should look like, where we're frantic and stressed, and we're not taking time for leisure and rest and experience.
That's the American way.
So
no, I mean, I think some of that is, that's just the culture that we've in the environment that we've created, where we are probably still trying to build and gain and have more. We can have more. I think it's just a constant battle between having more stuff and having more experiences. And I think I've always been wired more for more stuff than experiences. The older I've gotten, that's kind of flipped. So where now I like really do value experiences.
Yeah, it's so funny. You were talking about like people, I guess they do both. They go to Israel and spend all this money. Like I almost never buy anything when I travel.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that though. Every time
I
travel,
got this bracelet in Barcelona.
Every time I travel, I rarely find souvenirs that I like.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I like the experiences.
Yes.
I like, especially landscapes. We talked about that. I love seeing different landscapes and just different environments and meeting different people and experience and stuff. So that's the encouragement from this episode, is that we're telling people, hey, you should consider take a trip.
Get out there.
And, it kind of reminded me of like our last trip last summer when we went to Utah, which was like going to another country for us. We hadn't been to Utah before. Yeah. And Colorado. And that whole trip, like my family still talks about, like it was one of our favorite trips we've ever done.
You said you felt super Mormon there.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it that way, but we that trip was such a different from like I think ideally it's great to have a relaxing, like every year we go to this beach house with family. I think that can be such a fun way. That can be fun. Yeah. What I got from this, I feel like we do that a lot. Yeah. And I've enjoyed that. Those have been great moments, right? They're probably more relaxing. But that doesn't compare to me than what we did, which was traveling through different landscapes and seeing different stuff and staying in. I mean, like to me, I was like, I want to do that again. Yeah. That kind of sparked something in me that's like, I'd rather do that than go back to a beach. Yeah. My wife, I think, wants to go to the beach. So if I can do both, that's what that would be the ideal. If we could, and we almost did that this summer. But if we can do, if you can do a relaxing trip, if that is possible, but if you can do a little bit of travel, and there are ways to do it. That's if you can get real crafty. To me, a big way to go see a lot of places that's not real expensive, believe it or not, I think is a cruise. You can get deals on cruises, and they'll take you to 6. I mean, that's when we were going to go to the UK. It was going to take us to like 4 or 5 different major we were going to go to Wales, we were going to go to Ireland, we were going to go to Scotland, we were going to go to London, or England or UK or whatever. That's so we were going to get to visit all of them. Sure. And it was for doing all of that, it was a cost-effective way of doing things. Yeah. So, I guess travel, go somewhere. Yeah. Tell people, maybe they can tell us what their favorite place is to go visit. And this was another travel episode. It was. You went to Spain.
We kind of rambled, but hopefully it was at least educational or hopeful or, I don't know, entertaining.
Where's your next one?
So, my father and I are going to Egypt in September.
Oh, that's right. Egypt. Cairo? Egypt. Where are you going?
I know we're going to Cairo. I know we're going to go along the Nile. I don't remember all the places yet.
Is it already booked? The whole thing's already booked?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
So, I'm really excited.
Okay. Well, from Spain to Egypt, we'll just hold the fort right down here in Canal Winchester.
Hold the fort down.
Well, good for you. That'll be fun.
And, like, for me, too, it's and again, I know not everybody has this, because I've had people remind me, like, don't take this for granted. But, for me, it's really special to get to do this with my dad. Yeah. Like, my dad is in his 70s, has worked hard, again, retired teacher, educator. Yep. And he still subs on the side. And part of that is to save up for the trips that he finds these killer deals on, and me and him get to, I live. I'm a 9-hour drive away, a 5-hour, 3-hour flight away, and these are our opportunities once, twice a year, just to,
That's
cherish
cool.
the time together and
Well, good.
explore the world, and yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Well, have fun.
well, as we close, speaking of travel, Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson have been ousted.
They have some time to travel.
From media networks. You were going to give just a thought.
No, I didn't have any thoughts, actually. It's just pretty funny that both of them on the same day.
Mm-hmm. And President Biden announced he's running.
Yeah.
You going to vote for him again?
What was it? My.
We'll see you next week. It's been
It's so funny that you threw on some of those really funny things at the very end of this episode just to see if anybody would actually pay attention this far.
Yeah. So, anyways,
Pretty interesting.
send us what you would like us to talk about. Send us some topic suggestions. We are, I believe next week's going to be an important conversation. We're going to piggyback a little bit off the series, talk about some mental health stuff. And get pretty serious on what self-care actually looks like and some of that. So that'd be good. But anyways, hope this episode has been fun for you. Fun conversation to jump into while you're on your run or your drive or whatever you're doing while you listen. As always, thanks for joining. Email us at podcast@thex.church, podcast@thex.church. And until next week, we will see you then.